on. So yesterday's January 6th committee hearing heard from a lot of Republicans who called themselves Team Normal and not supporting former President Donald Trump's election fraud claims. The committee claims that although more than 800 people have been prosecuted, no one at the top who it says inspired the acts have actually been held accountable. The committee started constructing its case for Trump's involvement in the events during January 6th, claiming that he had the motive and the means to, again, incite violence. And that was what eventually they say took place. The committee has already been caught, though, some say in a lie, claiming that Congressman Barry Loudermilk did this kind of mission, if you will, for protesters. But security footage shows that, well, he was just simply leading a tour. He wasn't trying to incite any violence. Joining us live now to comment on this story, we have founder of the Patriot Academy, Rick Green. Joining us on the right and on the left, we have Democratic strategist and attorney Ken Altschuler. Although I say left and right, if you watch this show enough, you know it's a lot of gray here. Sometimes they switch sides. It can get interesting here. Let's see if it happens today. All right, Ken, I already know the answer to this. I know you've been watching the hearings.
I have.
Rick, probably you have too, because, well, this is what we do for a living. So, but a lot of Americans may not. So, Ken, I want to start with you. What are some of your key takeaways? And do you think, let's be honest here, that the committee is attempting to seriously hold former President Donald Trump liable, because we heard some conflicting information, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, or simply trying to ruin his chances of ever running in 2024, which is what Peter Navarro has been telling Newsmax. Fred Hume actually told Fox that he thinks some Republicans might be actually quietly happy about that. So that's a lot of food for thought. I want you to digest that. Let it marinate. What do you think?
Okay, so first of all, over 20 million people watched last Thursday, which was actually very surprising. I'm not sure that many watched, of course, yesterday morning. But I do think that lots of people watched it. I'm not sure it's the right people who watched it. Political junkies like us watched it. But I think the people who are the true Trump supporters aren't going to watch it or aren't going to care what they say. That being said, I think what people don't understand is that I'm not sure we're adverse to Donald Trump being the candidate in 2024. I don't think Donald Trump's the best candidate. We talk many times about Rick DeSantis from Florida. I think a much more formidable candidate, much frankly smarter in many ways than Donald Trump, much better personally presentable than Donald Trump, and has the same conservative views. So wouldn't he be a more difficult candidate for the Democrats to beat in 2024 than Donald Trump? So I don't think that the goal here is to derail Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump derails Donald Trump if anybody's going to. I don't think he's going to have the independent vote like he did in 2016. So I think they want to prosecute it. I think Democrats believe he instigated a riot. I think they believe he used election fraud argument to raise a lot of money to influence a lot of elections. And I think that there is some prospect of criminal activity. And I think that's what they're pursuing. And I think they should continue to pursue it, although it's up to the Department of Justice, not this committee, to decide if there's been any criminal activity.
Well, speaking of which, and I will get you to respond on this, Rick, but since you brought it up, so we can speculate about what the committee's true intentions are. That's what we're obviously doing, but it doesn't seem like, to be honest, that it even knows. So here's what I was talking about. There's just a little bit of confusion. Rick, maybe you can help me on this. Ken, maybe you can. So the chair of the committee, Benny Thompson, said yesterday that there would be no criminal referrals to, Ken's point, the Department of Justice as a result of these hearings. But then things got a little wonky because later Representative Liz Cheney, again, some people refer to her as a rhino, tweeted this. The January 6th Select Committee has not issued a conclusion regarding potential criminal referrals. We will announce a decision on that at an appropriate time. The committee has and can make criminal referrals, but it's not a law enforcement agency. Obviously, Rick, you know that. So going to Ken's point, let's start with this here, and then I want to backtrack. But why so much confusion? You would think they would kind of clearly lay that out, but we're still kind of shaking our heads.
Well, that's because there's only one purpose for this entire show trial. It is, in fact, to damage the reputation of Donald Trump, to damage the reputation of anyone that happened to be there in Washington, D.C. that day that was a supporter of Donald Trump. You mentioned Barry Loudermilk, good friend of mine, last guy in the world that would be involved in any kind of violence or in any way desecrate the Capitol. This is a guy that loves our country, loves that Capitol. I've been on tours with him through that Capitol. So it is a show trial. And I got to be honest, I was confused. I was thinking this was the Thursday night show, right, that I think Justin Bieber was supposed to do the halftime show for this producer in Washington for a bunch of Capitol people. Is that the one we're talking about? I didn't watch it. I'm just going to be honest. I watched the headlines a little bit and read some. You know why I tuned out, Miranda? Let's be honest. Select committee is the right name for this. They selected only those who would go along with the narrative. And any time in the political world you only allow one side to show up, it's a show trial. It's a sham. And the American people should see it as that. The proverb says one side sounds good until you hear the other. That's why we have a rich tradition in America of being able to confront your accusers, of being able to call witnesses on both sides, of hearing both sides. That's not at all what's happening here. This is all nothing but a bunch of defamation. Donald Trump did not say anything that would incite anything. He actually specifically said be peaceful and patriotic and all those things. This has been a sham from the beginning. It continues to be so. And all I'll say about the 20 million that watched it, that was a massive dip in ratings for these stations that aired this last Thursday. They lost viewers by buying into this show trial.
Yeah, and even the other day, I think, they talked about on American Sunrise with Ed Henry and Karen Turk, if you'd be sure and check out that show in the morning. But they talked about how even people on The View were upset yesterday because they went to the hearings and they didn't want to watch it. And I'm just generalizing, but I'm sure some of the people that are watching The View probably aren't big, staunch supporters of the president. And no, Rick Green is not a ventriloquist. Obviously, his screen froze there. We were trying to get to some video there. But he does have many talents. He does. But going back in all seriousness, and I know both of you disagree. I know, Ken, you've said before in the past that you believe that Trump did incite violence. I know, Rick, that you disagree with that. But something I heard the other day, and we've heard time and time again of people saying, well, this is a bipartisan committee. Not really. If you're not going to pick who most Trump supporters want, you have two people that voted to impeach the president that are serving as his so-called Republicans, one of whom has had basically all their titles stripped from them, and that is Liz Cheney. I mean, Ken, if you really want to portray that this is a bipartisan effort to get to what really happened that day, why wouldn't you at least put some Trump supporters, Trump Republicans on that panel?
Great point. And Kevin McCarthy had 5 nominees. Nancy Pelosi vetoed 2 of the 5, 2 who had voted against certifying the election, and 2 of them who had joined the Texas lawsuit to disqualify voters. And the other 3, and one included a freshman congressman who had also voted to decertify the election. And the other 3 she allowed on. Kevin McCarthy withdrew all 5 nominees. All 5, Miranda, not 2, 5. There were 3 people he wanted. Nancy Pelosi said, fine. He said, no, we're taking them off. So this is not a big lie, but it's a little lie. It's a deflection. They had the chance. Kevin McCarthy said no, and he did it for a reason. So you guys had your chance.
Wait, Ken, I got to ask you, who said no? Who said no first? Nancy Pelosi's the one that said no, not Kevin McCarthy. If you allow the Democrats to choose who the Republicans get to put on the committee, and if she gets to strike 2 of them, she is choosing. And by the way, what was the reason for striking them? Because they objected to electors? Well, then Nancy Pelosi can't serve. Then Sarah Raskin and some of these others who have objected to Republican electors in the past. Since when does exercising your 12th Amendment rights as a congressman disqualify you from serving on a committee? That we're forgetting how we got here in the first place.
No, my friend. Because they didn't just say, oh, we think there's some question about the election. They voted to decertify the election.
Which you should be allowed to do.
Challenging the election.
The Democrats did the same thing in the past.
We did bring up. We will continue this conversation. Unfortunately, I do have to take a commercial break. I appreciate the high energy today. We'll be right back.